All right. Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Jay. I'm the founder and CEO of TechForce Cyber, and thank you all for being here. I see we have more and more people joining. We're expecting lots of people. So far, we have 30, so I'm sure there will be more joining soon. So this webinar is about building cyber resilience in the age of AI and the AI management. I am accompanied by my colleague, Sam Peters, Chief Product Officer at ISMS.online. So what we are going to do is we'll split this talk into two. I'm going to present my thoughts on AI threat landscape with powered by AI just now, as well as some basic cyber resilience techniques. And then from there onwards, my colleague Sam will present his talk. Sam, before that, would you like to quickly, short introduction to yourself?
Yeah, thanks, Jay. I'm Sam Peters. I'm the Chief Product Officer for ISMS.online. We help organizations simplify their compliance, whether that's around information security, data privacy, or AI governance. We're here to help you. I've been with the organization probably about 13 years now, managing our information security compliance all the way through that journey. And yeah, really excited to join you today and talk to you a bit about the EU AI Act and how that affects AI governance and some practical tips and takeaways for you.
Awesome. And then what the plan is, so we'll wrap this talks around 35 minutes to 40 minutes, or maybe faster. And then we will have lots of time for answering questions and any discussions we may have. And I may have some questions for Sam during the talk, and Sam maybe likewise, Sam may have some as well. So we'll see and what kind of questions we get as well, and we'll discuss them as we go forward. Right. So let's get started, Connor. Brilliant. So this is the agenda, as I said, how AI is changing the threat landscape and resilience tactics, as well as Sam will present on the frameworks and how ISMS can help combat these threats coming through our way, right? So once again, I'm Jay, founder and CEO of TechForce Cyber. So let me start with a quick story. Right. I like to tell stories as always. So there is a company called Arup, A-R-U-P. Yeah. An engineering company. They are based in UK as well as having operations across the globe, multiple countries. Yeah. So it's they have a base in Hong Kong, right? In Hong Kong, one of their finance team receives an email asking for money transfer, the generic business email compromise technique, right? So the good thing is the person at the company recognizes this is a phishing email, this is a scam email, and then they ignore it, which is great, right? The security awareness is working so far. And then what happens is the person receives a call, a video call next, right? On the video, there is a CFO and two other people on the call, right? And then everybody having a chat with her, and everybody authorizes the transaction, and the person transfers $25.6 million. Yeah, US dollars. And in Hong Kong dollars, I think it's much more than that. But yeah, so, and then later on, they realize the people she spoke to are not the real people. They are the deep fakes of CFO and other people, right? So they lost over $25 million just like that. So that's the next version of business email compromise nowadays, right? If you heard this story before, please let me know in the comments and the question and answers. And if not, yeah, let me know either ways, right? So what's happening with these deepfakes and AIs, right? So in the past, in the olden days, if I have to clone myself, I would have to download multiple software and work through a number of days and weeks to have a decent enough clone of myself and then have my voice and my accent and whatnot. But with AI, what I figured is I could clone myself with less than 30 minutes. Exact clone, right? The digital image of myself talking just like me. Unless you're an expert, you could hardly tell who it is. And this is an example of how AI is advancing, right? And how the threats are advancing as well. Now, the Nigerian prince has died ages ago, and we used to look for the spelling mistakes and grammar mistakes and whatnot in the phishing emails. But with the Gen AI, these spelling mistakes and grammar mistakes they don't exist. The AI doesn't make any mistakes with any spelling mistakes, right? So the only mistake they might do is they would send an email to UK people with an American English. That could be the only difference. But your users have to be vigilant enough to know it is a US based English, right? So it is advancing at a much more rapid pace. For example, another example I can tell you is we have recently, I came across an incident where the threat actors downloaded or threat actors made Python libraries in a couple of hours, a whole bunch of Python libraries in a couple of hours. In olden days, that used to take weeks or months, right? With the AI, it's so quick nowadays, and AI can write code and whatnot, right? So the ease of deployment, the speed of writing malware, and the profitability in AI tools is really helping the bad guys more than the good guys. And the bad guys, they don't have rules. They keep on attempting. They adopt so much faster than the good guys, and that's their job every day. That's what they're doing, right? And it's not like they're targeting one single company. They're targeting everybody and anybody, hoping that somebody will fall victim for their techniques. Being the good guys we have to win every single time, and the bad guys have to win just once, right? So, and the deep fakes and the phishing is the biggest factor and biggest vector entering into any network, right? And the phishing is getting so much sophisticated with AI. As I said, the writing the malware is so easy as well, right? So how do you combat? How do you build a cyber resilience around the evolving threat landscape like this, right? Connor. Thank you, sir. So we're generally looking at a practical advice for SMEs and mid-market companies. So let me tell you the punchline, the slogan. The reactive response is out of the door. Yeah. If you are still a company that is reacting, that is waiting for an incident to happen and take measures, then God will help you. Right? The reactive response is out of the door. It's no longer, it doesn't exist, doesn't save anybody, doesn't protect anybody these days. Right? Proactive is not enough either. Right? We used to say, be proactive in your cybersecurity. Now it's not enough. Now it's all preemptive. Preemptive is the now, right? So you would have to look at what's the risk, what systems could be easily attacked using artificial intelligence developed malware, and how quickly they can move horizontally in your network, and what kind of data they could siphon, right? So, and having your own control network having your own security controls may not be enough. Looking at, right, okay, who are your key suppliers, who are the third party, and who are the fourth party? Who is your suppliers using as their suppliers, and who can be compromised, and eventually that can get to you, and you could be a collateral damage, right? So you are looking at number of things and outside your own network as well, right? And in your own network, how quickly can you detect a malware, an incident? How quickly can you respond? Do you have incident response? And nowadays, what I heard recently, I was in a talk. I was watching a webinar, and I heard a new term where the speaker said AI incident response. There are companies delivering a specific AI incident response services. So we are heading that way, right? And AI, you probably heard this term so many times on this talk alone, and maybe out of the talk, maybe you're hearing this 60 times every minute. It's everywhere. AI is the new culture. It's here to stay. We are seeing the advancements. We're seeing every company using it. Either you're using it operationally to increase your efficiency, or bad guys are using it to to stop you in your tracks, right? So we've been working with a number of companies on how to implement, how to use, and also how to monitor, and what policies to implement, what kind of AI tools to use. It's good to have an inventory of what's been done, what's your process, and what's been done in your business. It's easier for your employees, your staff, to go on and put information on ChatGPT and what kind of information they're putting in. And some companies, what we have seen is they are blocking all the AI tools outright, right? And some companies allowing them, and some companies have no policy at all. It's free for all. And some companies are saying, you know what, we're using Office 365, so we're going to use Copilot and nothing else. Yeah. So what's your policy? It's a right time to look at it, right? Another most important thing I think I mentioned at the very beginning of this talk is awareness. Yeah. In the engineering company I mentioned, the finance person detected that was a phishing attempt, although the person was scammed later on with a deepfake. But how confident are you that your employees can detect these phishing emails as well as deepfake video calls or voice calls? Yeah. And do you have tools to detect them? That's something to look at as well. And lastly, AI needs information of you to use it against you, right? So what information of your business, what business information, whether it is your users' data, credentials, any other information about your business, what's out there already that can be used against you? Yeah, that's something to look and monitor for, right? I will add more pointers later on, but keep your questions coming in. We will take all your questions, but for now, I'm going to pass this on to my colleague Sam, and then I'll jump in later on. Okay, over to you, Sam.
Thanks, Jay. Yeah, great introduction there from Jay around some of the sort of threat and risk around AI. I want to sort of take that and sort of probably talk about the other side of the coin, I guess, in terms of your own use of AI and your own kind of governance around AI itself. And just to kind of frame that a bit for you, as we've seen, AI's moved from being experimental to being used everywhere, fairly rapidly. And as Jay pointed out, often without insight. Oversight, sorry, not insight. Hopefully it gives insight. That's why you're using it. And that creates both an opportunity and a risk for your business. Okay, so the opportunity is to take advantage of these tools to work faster, to work smarter. And the risk, as Jay's highlighted, is that idea of data misuse, shadow AI tools without any proper controls, and so on. In fact, ISMS.online publishes a State of Information Security report every year. And in 2025, we surveyed 3,000 companies across the UK and the US. And from those respondents, 37% of them said that shadow AI was their top concern emerging this year. So this is a real problem for businesses. It's not just about regulation, although we'll talk about that in a minute. It's essential to kind of put this governance in place to maintain trust and control within your organization around the tools that you're using. So I wanted to just kind of go on and talk a little bit about the EU AI Act. So much like we saw with privacy and GDPR, we're now seeing legislation being introduced to govern how organizations are using and managing AI as they work. I wanted to just try out one of these polls. I'm the first time Zoho webinar user, so excuse me if I press the wrong buttons here, but we've got a poll question to go out. How familiar are you with the EU AI Act and its implications? So if I just press start on that, you should see the options. Very familiar, we're preparing for it. Somewhat aware, we need a bit more clarity. Heard of it, but not sure what it means, or not familiar at all. And quite a few of you voting already, which is fantastic. So a lot of responses for the heard of it, but not necessarily aware so far. We'll publish those results in a second. So the EU AI Act was formally approved in 2024, and it has a kind of staged implementation over the next few years based on the kind of risk and the parts of the legislation. It looks at AI against certain risk factors, and the higher the risk and potential harm, the stricter the requirements it introduces. But it's focusing primarily on accountability, on the safety, on the accuracy and the transparency of those tools. So we'll have a look at those in a second. And it looks across the whole AI lifecycle, from training data and model testing to actually monitoring systems once they're deployed and live. So who does the EU AI Act apply to? And let's just publish these results before we go on and talk about that. Hopefully you can see that on screen, with 50% of respondents saying they've heard of it and 8% of respondents very familiar there. Well, here's the interesting thing. The EU AI Act doesn't just target tech giants. It's not just for Meta and Google. It applies to anyone who develops, deploys, or uses in a professional capacity AI systems within the EU, or whose systems impact EU citizens. So that means you might be developing an AI model. It applies to you. You might be deploying or using an AI model within your business. Maybe you've got some sort of chat function on your website. Maybe you've got AI call answering, something like that. This applies to you. Or maybe you are reselling AI tools. You're distributing them within the EU. Okay, well, this applies to you as well. So even if you're based in the UK, if the product or service that you're offering touches the EU market, then the Act is relevant to you. Okay, so how might it be relevant, and what are you doing with AI, and what do you need to be thinking about? Now, I mentioned these ideas of risk. The regulation talks about 4 levels of risk. Unacceptable risk, so like using AI for bad. This is the sort of supervillain AI where it's manipulating you, it's trying to force decisions on you and so on. That's just outright banned, so we don't need to sort of think about that too much. There is high risk AI, so this is AI that's being used, say, in recruitment. Is someone getting a job on the basis of a decision made by this AI? Or credit scoring, is someone being offered finance on the basis of a decision made by AI? Healthcare, critical infrastructure, education, those sort of things fall in this kind of high risk area. You may or may not be doing something with that in your business. If you are, you're probably already one of the people in the somewhat aware or very familiar group. But the limited risk area, I think, is really interesting and probably relevant for a lot of people on this call. And this is where we're starting to look at things like chatbots or AI generated content, or where you're using AI to detect emotions, or in Jay's example, if you are generating deepfakes, then technically, according to the legislation, you have to declare that they're a deepfake. I'm sure that a lot of those hackers are following that particular law. But the important thing here, and the important thing for you to be aware of if you are using AI in any of those ways, is that under the EU AI Act, there is an obligation for you to declare that users are interacting with AI. For example, at the end of a report that's been generated with AI or using AI, you might say, this report was generated with the help of AI, or something like that. And this is the idea of transparency, the transparency obligation. So definitely something to be aware of if you are using AI in that way. So some of the governance that we're going to go on and talk about will be relevant to you. If you're doing high risk stuff, then There's additional things around needing a level of human oversight. So a human is looking at all of the outcomes. So no decision is completely made by AI without a human sort of looking in on it. You'd need to have governance around bias prevention, looking at where your training data comes from, whether it's representative of the user base that you're serving. And you'd need to make sure that you had the right kind of documentation in place around what data was used for training and testing. If you're supplying a model that is used by other people, how do they understand what has been used? Does it respect the copyright directive and so on? So there is a level of kind of escalating obligation placed on you as an organization, depending on what you're doing with AI and how you're using it. So hopefully that's kind of given you a bit of an eye-opener around your organization's responsibilities around the EU AI Act, and certainly something that's worth most organizations considering if they are deploying AI in some way. So why am I now talking about 42001, as you can see on the slide here? Well, ISO 42001 is the new international standard from the ISO around managing AI responsibly. It's the first kind of global standard in this area, although there are other standards now coming out around NIST AI and things like that. But if any of you have any familiarity with ISO 27001 or any of the other ISO management standards, you'll be very familiar with some of the sort of approaches taken within 42001. It covers things like identifying and assessing AI risks in terms of your use of them within the business, defining clear roles, responsibility, and accountability within your organization for the use and vetting of AI. It looks at how you might manage data quality, how you might manage bias, and how you might monitor and improve systems over time. The why might you want to implement a standard like ISO 42001? Well, it would be a great way of showing both your regulators and your customers that you have a consistent and auditable approach to AI governance. But it's also a great way of giving you as business leaders or senior managers within your organization confidence around how your organization is using AI in a responsible way. You know, Jay highlighted those sort of challenges where people are blocking AI entirely. You're probably missing out on some great opportunity by doing that. How do you put the right checks and balances in place to make sure you can use AI in the most effective way as possible? And I know from talking to different investors, if any of you are thinking about trying to get funding or looking to sell a business in the sort of coming years, an AI strategy will likely be a key part of what your investors are looking for. So not just what are you going to do with AI, but how are you going to do it in a safe, secure, and sustainable way that isn't compromising the value of the business as well. So another angle to be thinking about this stuff from. And why does governance matter? Well, we've talked about some of the kind of risk and threat from outside factors. Your risk and threat from inside factors is significant as well in terms of fines and sort of penalties from legislators. So again, calling back to our State of Information Security report, last year around 71% of the organizations that we surveyed had some fine for a compliance failing or a legislative failing. And nearly a third of those fines were over £250,000. So this is a significant cost to business of governance failures, essentially. So having good governance in place is a great protection against that. And if we look at the EU AI Act, failure to disclose that content is provided by an AI could lead to fines of up to €15 million or 3% of worldwide turnover. So those are the worst case scenarios. Something pretty bad's got to happen with that. But those are the kind of fines that are available. So we're looking at GDPR style fines, but in relation to AI. So building governance now means fewer surprises later on and gives you more resilience when regulations change and adapt. So I want to take this moment just to run another quick poll as well around how would you describe your organization's AI governance maturity at the moment? So that should just be running on the screen. Do you have an established policy? Is there something very clear in place? Are you developing anything at the moment? early stage, maybe you're thinking about it, you've joined a webinar that talks about it, or you don't have anything in place yet at all. So let's just let that run for a second. A lot of people, again, coming back in the sort of early stages of thinking about this as well. So if you're just starting out with AI governance, 42001 is a significant standard to be thinking about. So I just wanted to give you some initial tips that might be useful things for you to think around how your company is thinking about AI. So a great place to start would be to inventory all of your AI use. If you're doing things like 27001, you should be tracking tools and systems in use anyway. But if you aren't doing that, this is a good time to start thinking about that. Are you using ChatGPT? Are staff actually logging into ChatGPT with their personal accounts because it's useful for them, but you're not providing it to them as an organization? So starting to understand all of that product in use. As part of your acceptable use policies, also include some guidance around what's okay in the use of AI, what data can go in, what can't go in. Going back to that idea of transparency, if you're providing AI tools that have a customer impact, are you declaring that the information is provided by AI? Are you meeting that transparency obligation? And as with all of these kind of supply chain things, it's great to document and assess your supply chain and understand that you're buying your AI from reputable providers and you're implementing it in an effective way as well. So those are some areas that you might want to start out with to kind of help you with some of your AI governance. And I've just published those results on screen. As you can see, 45% of people, so 56% overall at early stage, are not yet having any kind of AI governance in place. Connor, could you jump onto the next slide for me? And I just want to talk a little bit about AI governance in relation to the wider governance that you may already have within your business. So as you're probably aware, if you follow any one of these standards, the ISO 27001 is your information security standard, 27701 is your information privacy standard, and 42001 is your AI governance standard. And actually, these could all be managed separately from one another, but there is a real benefit in thinking about them in an integrated way. The ISO standards themselves are designed so the initial section around, which is essentially plan, do, check, act. What is my organization? What am I doing and what are my policies? How am I implementing that and making sure it's working? And then how am I improving that system? They're common across all of those standards. In fact, they're common across quality and health and safety and things like that as well. So there's a real opportunity here to save time and effort around implementing these together. And some of the kind of basic principles that are common beyond that as well. So you're thinking about risk. Why not manage your risk to information security, privacy, and AI governance in one place? Why not audit one activity around supplier management that also looks at how you're putting data privacy through AI tools? There you go. You've done 3 audits in one, essentially. It gives you a clearer view as an organization around how you're thinking about this, and it gives your customers the confidence that you're thinking across the entire sort of information security landscape of your business. You know, we've touched on we've heard many times around some of the challenges and implications of the supply chain. And again, in our information security report, 61% of organizations said their business had been impacted by a security incident caused by a third-party vendor in the last year. And nearly 2/5 said it led to a breach of customer or employee data. So if you're starting to think about all of these things together, what AI tools are you using? How are you using it? What data is going through it? You're actually starting to think in an integrated and holistic way. So how can you bring all of that together? Maybe you are thinking about privacy and information security, but you aren't yet thinking about AI. Well, you can build a single risk register that covers all of those 3 areas. You could look at your supplier review process to make sure that it's covering off not just information security, but privacy and how the AI is being used within that as well. When you're offering training and guidance for employees, you could be thinking about providing that in a holistic way. You know, your use of AI covers all of those information security and privacy areas. And as you think about your objectives for the business and your measures of success or your measures of challenge, you might want to think about integrating that in a consistent way as well. You know, time to respond to incidents around AI, the percentage of your AI supply chain that's been assessed, and so on. And when you bring all of those together, Connor, if you just jump onto the last slide here that just gives a kind of graphic of it, you get a more joined up picture of compliance. You know, your team can spend less time preparing for audits and more time on real world resilience, and you can demonstrate to your customers and partners that you take all forms of this risk seriously together. We like to think of this as a sort of resilience loop. You know, Jay did an excellent job of describing resilience from an attack perspective. This is resilience from a governance perspective as well. You know, we've talked about fines, we've talked about all of that kind of control that you might want to have. So just to kind of bring that to a conclusion, you know, the EU AI Act is pushing organizations to prove that they've got control of their AI tooling and systems. ISO 42001 is a great way structuring your approach to responding to the Act, and unifying AI security and privacy governance saves you time and money. And this comes together in this resilience loop. So hopefully that's been a useful kind of introduction to the EU AI Act and governance around it. But Jay, I'll pass back to you at this point.
Yeah, great. Thanks, Sam. Well done. Nice presentation. Right. All right. Someone asking a question. Will you be sending out recording of the webinar? Connor? Yes, I think it's a yes. We will be sending the recording. So Sam, let's take some questions, and yeah, then we can bounce back and forth maybe.
Sounds great.
You will be answering most of the questions anyway. Right. We have another anonymous question. What are some early signs that an organization isn't as resilient as it thinks it is? Okay.
I'm happy to kind of take a view on that from a governance side. You know, if we think about that shadow AI tool, if you went and sort of said, you know, no fear, no blame, are you using AI tools that aren't authorized in this organization to your staff? And they said, yeah, I'm putting all the stuff in ChatGPT because it makes me 5 times quicker and I can actually get my job done. That's a really key takeaway for you as an organization, to understand that that is actually happening in your business. So I think if you think you've got a great AI policy in place, but your staff are off doing their own thing, that for me is a real red flag that means you should start thinking about this in a different way.
Absolutely, I second that. And what I would add to that is, yeah, not knowing what you have and what you don't have. Just, you know, if I ask you a question, are you using AI? Are your staff aware of the you know, pros and cons of AI? Right? And if you don't know the answer for it, then you probably are not as resilient as you think you are. Right? So everyone who is here attending the session, please do shoot your questions in question and answers or chat. We'll take those questions one by one, and we'll get back to you. You can ask the question as they are, or you can ask them as anonymous as well, as some people are asking it here. Right. So we have one of my favorite persons here. What about the UK? Are we going to be following EU Act, or will UK will have its own similar to EU Act? By Ash Patel.
Hey Ash, good to see you or hear from you. Yeah, there is a UK AI Act in the works. It's not yet through legislation into regulation, but yes, there is a UK view coming. I think it's interesting to sort of see what's happening in the response to the existing EU AI Act at the moment as well. So in the news last week or this week, I can't remember which, there's been quite a lot of talk around pushback from some of the larger AI organizations around some of the restrictions on general, what's it called? I can't remember if it's general purpose AI or something like that that's defined in the Act. So these larger organizations are asking for more time to implement the controls from the EU AI Act and asking for it to be softened. And it seems like the EU is responding to that in a kind of positive way. So I imagine that the UK is kind of looking at what's happening in Europe and saying, how do we respond to what's going on there? You've seen with EU GDPR and UK GDPR that actually even though we have the opportunity to diverge from it, we haven't yet. And I could imagine us being fairly closely aligned with the overall EU approach. And remember, even if we do introduce something, if your product is being used in the EU or you're selling into the EU, you need to comply with the EU AI Act anyway.
Sam, it seems EU has taken an early steps into a regulation for AI, right? It seems even America doesn't have a regulation for AI.
Yeah, I think there's a bit of a sort of philosophical difference in between the sort of US and the EU in terms of how they approach regulation and legislation. The EU uses it as a tool, I think, to protect citizens, and the US looks at it from the approach that actually, if we have less regulation, it's a business enabler. And regulation and legislation is a stifler to progress. So I think the US is very keen on pushing forward with AI tooling and pushing the frontiers of what's possible with AI to make sure they remain a leader, whereas the EU is kind of seeing this as a kind of protectionist, maybe that's too strong a word, but looking at its citizens and saying, how do we protect our citizens from some of the less desirable consequences of AI use?
Okay, this may be a daft question, but I'll ask anyway. So does it mean it could be a restriction, it can be seen as a bit of an restriction for innovation in EU than America?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's more that you've got to think about. It's more that you've got to think about in terms of building out product in the EU. In the end, the organizations in the US that are kind of most affected by this are some of those global organizations anyway. Anthropic, Meta, Google, OpenAI, who are providing tooling into the EU anyway and have to comply with it. So it's a little bit sort of, chicken and egg anyway. But I think that there is a view in the US that regulation is a business inhibitor rather than a business progressor, and that's there.
Hi. Okay. Good. Okay. Another question we have is there a way to protect public-facing videos to prevent deepfakes? I think the question is aimed at me, but I'll ask you first.
Yeah, I was going to say, Jay, I'm hoping you know the answer to this one because I'm listening carefully to see what we.
I'm considering using a face mask again.
Go back to COVID style. Yeah.
Go back to COVID style. Yeah. The answer is it's a tricky one. I don't know, to be honest. That's the answer. But it's a really good question. How would we prevent deepfakes using public-facing videos? I guess anybody can, even if you disable download options and stuff, anybody can record the screen, right?
The moment it's on your screen, it's freely available, basically.
Yeah, that's it. So it is already public-facing, which means you have the risk of somebody deepfaking your video. So the right steps now are to preempt, and also let your staff know this can happen. How can I protect? That's a good question. Let me come back to you. But I don't know who asked the question. You said anonymous, so yeah. I don't mind my videos to be deepfaked. I don't mind more publicity.
Careful what you say on a public webinar there.
I'm only joking. Right. So what about UK? Right. Okay. Ash had already asked the question. Are there any examples of an organization using legal means to get an AI tool to delete data that staff have mistakenly shared into the tool? How much did that cost and how long would it take? Would be a great example to show leadership. Okay, essentially, do you understand the question, Sam?
Yeah, so a member of your team has put data that they shouldn't in an AI tool. Is there any sort of mechanism for you to get that data deleted out of the tool and out of the training database? I'm genuinely not sure on that one. I know that the example that's leaping to mind is some of the copyright infringement lawsuits that have been in the press recently, where Newspapers in particular have been challenging these large models to say you shouldn't have used our data for training purposes, and that's been a prolonged and expensive legal battle with them to get that data out. So I'm not certain of a kind of easy and efficient legal route for you to follow on that. Many of these tools do provide opportunities for you to kind of remove data, but once that data has been used for training purposes, I don't know if it's a case of that thing. I don't think it includes taking that data out of the training model. I may be wrong on that. I'm not au fait enough with the technicalities of those tools.
Sam, this is a good webinar. when I go to a webinar, I feel like I can answer most of the questions, but this isn't one of them. Right? So, this just goes to show the evolving landscape of AI, right? So not many countries don't even have regulation, and the AI is going at 200 miles an hour. But to answer your question here, I may not be able to answer exactly what you're looking for. I don't know any examples of somebody got an AI tool to remove the data, but I'll tell you something. There is a company recently sued Salesforce. Yeah. Some of you on this call may or may not know that. So Salesforce have used open source books to feed their algorithm, and then the copyright holders for some of the books, because these books are pirated. So the copyright holders of these books have sued Salesforce. I believe this is only like in the last couple of weeks. So the case is still ongoing. So it would be very interesting to follow and see what's going to happen. Yeah. But so far with OpenAI, Claude, all these tools, I haven't heard anything at all. So the better don't put any confidential information in there.
Yeah. Or make sure that you're providing license tooling and that you've switched off that feature that provides that data, that uses the input data as part of the training model. So at least you've got a level of security around what you go in is not being used in perpetuity in that model.
Yeah. Good. Right. Let's move on to the next question. A lot of small and mid-sized businesses don't have massive budgets. What are some of the practical things they can do to build resilience against AI-driven threats?
You want to go first? Yeah, one takeaway I'd put with my ISO 27001 hat on is that a lot of AI-driven threats can be nullified by basic information security practice. Good use of strong passwords, unique passwords, two-factor authentication, making sure that everything's patched and up to date, making sure that you're following those kind of like basic information security hygiene things. Because a lot of what this AI tooling will be doing is exploiting known vulnerabilities in software that potentially has been patched, but you haven't updated to. So I would say, if you want to get a good baseline, just practice good information security hygiene. Jay, you were talking about some of the challenges of phishing and vishing and stuff like that. So those are other awareness challenges to sort of take on. But I would say, good information security hygiene is the bedrock of your approach to resilience in this.
Exactly. I would second that. So basic cyber hygiene. So if you look at the cyber attacks, most of them are exploiting some sort of vulnerability, either that is with people or that is with the software you have, technology you have, right? With AI, that process is now, it's the efficiency has been increased and the speed of delivery has increased, right? Which means you would have to fix your vulnerabilities and make sure your people are on high alert before these things happen. So, and you asked, you said about budgets, right? And I'm a big believer in money is not for answer for everything. You can't throw money at everything. If you have the small budgets, look at what skills you have got in house and what's the low hanging fruit. The basic cyber hygiene, as Sam mentioned. Make sure your patching is in place, make sure your people are aware, make sure you have some sort of response plan if something happens, business continuity plan. Yeah, and awareness and preparedness. Yeah, that's the key. Two things. Right. So let's move on to the next one. But if you have a follow-up question, anyone has a follow-up question, please do ask the questions. We'll take them on. Right. Hi, Jens. Do you see ISO 42001 becoming as a fundamental to trust as a ISO 27001 is today? Or will it remain niche until regulation forces adoption? Daniel Barnes, I believe he's from ISMS.
Well, Daniel, man after my own heart then. So yeah, I see 42,000. If we look at ISO 27001 over the last, say, 10 or 15 years or so, we've seen a kind of consistent rise in adoption year on year as it's become a kind of accepted standard. I think we're very, very early days with 42,001. A lot of organizations, as we've seen on this call, are still early in thinking about how they're approaching governance. In that question, will it remain niche until regulation forces adoption? Well, we're kind of there, right? We're there a bit like with GDPR. So I think we will see an increase in 42,001 over the next coming years as well. Will it reach the level of ubiquity of 27? I can see a future, right, where actually the requirements in 42,001 are broadly merged into ISO 27001, because we are talking about developing and maintaining IT systems. It's just that they happen to be used for a specific purpose around AI. So you could start to see combined versions of these coming out in the future as well. So I think it's only going to grow in importance and only going to grow in adoption.
Cool. I will leave it to you on that one. You're the expert. So Alex Kurtz, I don't think it's a question, but he's just adding to the point earlier. I believe it's a Ash Patel's question. I imagine that it will be more that regulatory bodies already in place by sector take the ownership of regulation in the UK. Yeah. So next question, do you think the bigger risk comes from attackers using AI or from companies adopting AI without proper controls in place?
The risk I can see for a company adopting AI without proper controls in place is that the rest of your information security, if we go back to that previous question, what can you do to protect against AI threats, right? Let's say you've got basic information security hygiene in place. Actually, you're probably protecting yourself from the majority of things that are coming at you. But then your weak link is someone using a tool in an inappropriate way, putting a data set into a tool that they shouldn't put into a tool that makes it public or something like that. So if you think about it from the point of view of fines and the sort of impact of that, going back to that information security report with 81% of organizations or whatever it was facing a fine, that might have been a bit high, it might have been 78 or something. Then this is a real potential for a kind of leaky bucket in your organization. Maybe you avoid all of the AI powered cyber attacks, but you're dropping the ball internally in terms of your own practice and procedure. I guess that the risk of the AI attack is probably greater in terms of its overall impact, but the likelihood of an employee misappropriating AI or putting data they shouldn't in it is probably higher.
So yeah, exactly. So the bigger risk is some attackers using AI. I will go with that. And adopting AI without proper controls in place, right? Your business has already adopted AI. There's no discussion about that. You should have controls in place now. Any software, any tools you're using, everybody is implementing AI. Office 365 or Google or whatever you're using, and most businesses between Google and Office 365, that's it. 99% of the businesses, that's what they use. So just to give you an example, so your business have already adopted AI. Now you better look into controls. Sorry, excuse my English. English is not my first language. I don't mean to come across as harsh.
No, I think it's a great way of looking at it. It's a bit like the assume compromise approach of security, right? Assume that someone's already in your system. How do you then protect the data? It's that your business is using AI. Someone in there is using it in some way. If you haven't caught up with them, that's your problem.
Yeah. Okay, it was me who asked the deepfake video. Thanks. Jail Wheeler. Connor, remember this name. We'll get back to him. Yeah. Brilliant. So the Deloitte Australia case highlights what can go wrong when AI outputs aren't properly governed. Do you think organizations today truly understand their accountability when AI is part of the workflow? And how can frameworks like ISO 42 make accountability operational and theoretical? You know what happened with Deloitte, yeah?
I haven't heard that one actually. I've been on a news blackout for the last.
Okay, no worries. I don't know either, but I'll give you what I understand at a high level. So essentially, they released a white paper, and the white paper is produced by AI,
Right.
and it has the references to what your usual ChatGPT produces the report, right?
Yeah.
So it looks like exactly same, and Deloitte had to apologize for what happened. It must have went through the quality checks on multiple people, and I'm not sure what happened there, but it came out, and then the industry weren't happy, so Deloitte apologized. So that's the case Daniel is referring to.
Yeah, so if you take that back to the EU AI Act, for example, so you're producing information that is educating the public, is of public interest, so white paper in this case about something, and that report has been generated using AI, then theoretically you're supposed to declare that the output of the content that you're producing is using AI. So that would be in when that part of the act comes into force, that will be part of the sort of response that was required of you. So our organization's aware of that. I wouldn't imagine the general populace in most organizations is aware of that at the moment. So can 42001 operationalize this? Yes, because if you think about that education, awareness and training part of all of these ISO standards, making your employees aware of what's acceptable, what's not acceptable, and what the requirements on them are, requires you as a business having thought about that and planned for it, and that's what something like 42001 lets you do.
Brilliant. So I will ask you a question. I know ISMS is great for all ISO frameworks, and we have worked with you with several clients successfully so far. And is it the same with the 42001 as well?
Yeah, exactly. So our product provides guidance on how to implement 42001, how to understand the different controls that are there. We've got some templates that you can use to tailor to your organization to help you get started as well. And then we've got a number of staff who are aware of 42001 as a standard and can provide some guidance, as well as expert partners like yourselves.
So if somebody comes to you for 42001, they can walk out of the other side of the door after maybe a few months with
Yeah, exactly. And I think it's a really exciting area for businesses to start in. And if 42001 is your first journey into compliance with ISO standards, then ISMS.online is a great place to start with that. And if you look later to expand into, say, information security or privacy, we can support you in that as well, bringing it together in one integrated management system.
Brilliant. So you heard it. If anybody is interested and wants to explore this and just want to have a chat or look at the platform yourself, just let us know. We will help you get there. Okay. Right. Let's take the last question. If you have any further questions, please keep them coming. But so far, this is the last question. Right. Do you think the bigger risk comes from attackers? Oh, okay.
Yes, I think it's someone's posted twice, so
twice, yeah.
We're spared a last question.
This happens on my Instagram live. People copy paste the questions a lot to get my attention. Right. That's been really great. Do you have any closing statement, Sam?
No, I've referenced the State of Information Security report a couple of times in this, just to say that's a freely available report that you can download on our website. And I think when we send out the information from this, there should be a link or some reference to it in there as well. I'd encourage you to check it out. It's a great piece of understanding around how companies like you are facing information security challenges at the moment.
Yeah, absolutely. Whether you agree to it or not, AI is already here, and AI has become a culture, and it's going nowhere. Your company is already using in some form or shape. Your staff are already using it. They're probably putting every single email you're receiving in AI before you get it. So let's accept the truth, and let's look into the controls, how we can protect the data. Yeah. All right. With that, I don't think we have any further questions, Sam. We can.
Thank you very much for having me, Jay. It's been a pleasure.
Yeah, thanks, Sam. It's been awesome, and also thank you every single one of you, all 65, 70 people who attended today. Thank you so much, and watch out or look out for the emails. We will send you as follow-up. We will send you the recording as well as any other information we promised we will send. And also, the person who asked about deepfake, I will send you the answer, hopefully.
Nice.
All right.
Thanks, everyone. Have a great day.
All right. Brilliant. Thanks, Sam. Cheers. Bye-bye.